Peace, family. This is Underground Railroad. Your host, Father Rich. I'm out here at BAM Festival. Brother Mike, I want to ask these lovely individuals talking. I want y'all to introduce yourselves, and I also want y'all to talk to me real quick about the fact that California recently banned racial discrimination against employees with natural hairstyles. Now, what's weird is that we're in 2019. The fact that a law had to be passed in order for black people to wear their natural hair is like mind-boggling. So, can you talk to me about the weaponization of our natural hair? We're not doing anything. We're just allowing our hair to grow, and it's considered, it has been weaponized. So, could you talk to me about what your opinion on that, real quick, both of y'all?
So I'll speak first if that's okay. Okay, so Madam C.J. Walker, who created the straightening comb, was one of the first millionaires to, I guess, help with the assimilation, if you will, into a white supremacist paradigm. This is no offense and no disrespect to the elder, to our ancestor, Madam C.J. Walker. But along with that, it has to be understood that during that period of time in the early 19th century, coming into the 40s, 50s, and 60s, you had to assimilate in order to be to get a job, if you will. All right. So the banning of the natural hair is, to me, it's just another assault on African culture and African spirituality and who we are as a people. At some point, I would hope that our people would continue to push, because you have seen in recent years sisters wearing their hair natural. Now, brothers, we normally wear our hair. I don't call it natural, I call it normal, right? We're wearing our hair normally, right? Because that's how it grows out of our scalp. But with the brothers, it's not really a thing per se. Like, you know, it is if we're wearing cornrows and locks and afros, and that becomes sort of a problem in white America. But it's more so, in my opinion, has been, this is my personal opinion, with the black women or with the sisters and how they wear their hair, and it's been more of an issue with them. So I believe that we have to be steadfast and continue to wear our hair normally, not naturally, as we say naturally, but wear it normally, and force society or status quo, or their status quo, for us to, to be ourselves, our indigenous selves, within the white supremacist paradigm. And I don't want to speak over our heads, but this is for those who clearly understand and overstand that we are in, white supremacy. Some people even disagree with that. Some people say don't even call it that because you're giving it power. But for lack of a better term, understanding, names, our last names, if you speak English, the culture is pretty much more of a European culture than it is of anything else. And with all that being said, trying to tie it all in, not get long-winded as I normally am, we should just continue to be steadfast, wear our hair normally, no matter who says what. So I apologize for taking off all your time. I'll give you to the eloquent Akoko from London.
Can you repeat the question again?
California recently passed a bill banning racial discrimination against natural hair. Natural hair, such as what you want to call a natural or normal, it has been weaponized. It's considered almost a crime to wear your hair like that, where companies are like, we don't really like that look. It doesn't fit with our company. We don't really want you to have that look. So they had to pass a law. It's 2019. It's crazy, but it is what it is. So I want you to talk about the weaponization of what you're wearing right now, the way your hair looks right now. It's been weaponized. It's considered a crime in corporate America almost. So could you touch on that, my sister? And like he said, more with the sisters more than the males.
Sure.
So touch on that.
I mean, I'm from London, and we have a similar problem that you have here, is that when you go to work, or even actually outside of work, in schools in London, children are being sent home and being expelled because of their hair. So, you know, in London recently, we've had young boys of 8 years old who've been told they can't come to school because they've got locks.
That's deep. Wow.
Or the school policy has a certain grade in which the hair of a boy has to be cut to. So if it's a grade 1, it's too low. So if you're a young black boy, a grade 1 is good for you, you know. It's not like a white boy when you got a grade 1 is a skinhead. But those same children are being told they have to, you know, they have to pertain to the same rules that we have for white people, but we ain't the same. And I think that's a big problem that we've had for a very long time, is that, you know, when they've taken us and they brought us here, they want to make us the same and make us pertain to their same rules and regulations, which don't work for us. And, you know, we kind of like got this ideal that everyone is the same, let's assimilate, let's follow their rules, but the fact of the matter is we're different, right? And we shouldn't have to follow exactly the same rules that they do. The fact that in 2019 that they're having to pass laws to allow us to be able to be who we are says a lot about the legacy of slavery. And, you know, it's lasted a very, very long time. It's got a chokehold on all of us. It's like a parasite on all of our backs that we just can't rid ourselves of. There's no solution to it right now. We're kind of in this sunken place, as they would say, and, you know,
That's right.
you know, it's a good thing that that law is there, but yeah, you do have to question, why is it in 2019 only that that law is there? And I think it's because a lot of people allow the bullshit. You know, not enough people are saying something. You know, people complain at home, but actually what they will do is they'll comply. We've been complying for too long. So when they've told us that this hair isn't going to get us a job, we've got rid of it. But if at the beginning they told us this hair ain't going to get you a job and you said, no, but this is my hair, then someone would have done something a long time ago. But we've always just allowed them to, because we wanted to be accepted here, and we wanted to be part of what this is, because we don't know what home is, you know, and that's the problem. There's a disconnect, you know, when we got taken and brought to these foreign lands and not knowing home, we got nowhere to shoot for, so we've got to shoot for what's here, because this to us is home, so therefore we've got to do what they're asking us to do in order to feel like we belong. And I guess part of the reason of why it's taken so long is because people weren't speaking out before. They were speaking amongst themselves, but they weren't speaking out, and they were all complying. There's been no uprising before, you know, so if we had enough of an uprising way back, of course they have to do something about it. You know, no one likes violence, no one likes uprising. They want us all to be cool and tame. So if we had enough people talking and saying, actually no, this is normal, this is our hair, we ain't gonna change it, because to change it we're having to use chemicals and burn ourselves, then they would have to do something about it. But no one was doing that. People were complying. We were buying the bullshit. We were going to the Indian shops and we were buying the relaxer creams, and, you know, we're being them. We're buying the Korean weaves and the wigs and everything else, and people are still doing it today. So it's a horrible thing to say. It's not our fault, but we've been part of the problem. But the fact that we're part of the problem isn't our fault. It's what they did so many years ago that we have no control over, unfortunately. And that's my take.
Thank you.
I just want to say one quick thing. And she elegantly put that down.
Definitely.
Yeah, yes, indeed. One quick thing. I just saw something. You know how you see a lot of documentaries and video stuff and stuff like that. And I saw something on, I think Cicely Tyson was on the cover of a magazine. I don't know if it was Jetta Ebony. And they were talking about how she had an afro out. This was even, I think, during the Black Power movement, even back then. And there was a lot of, from what I think I was seeing in this documentary, what I recall, like black people who were very embarrassed by that. And if anybody wants to look that up to, you know, to double check that, she was on the cover, I think, of Ebony and Jet. There's a lot of black people that were saying were embarrassed about her wearing kind of hair like that. But one last point that I want to leave is I really think, again, and I used to think about this a lot, because I worked in a corporate structure, and I remember a sister that would come in who converted, and she wasn't Muslim at first, but then she converted to Islam, and she started coming in with Islamic garb. Beautiful garb, colorful garb. And you could tell it was the esteem of the establishment being low or insecure just on how she was dressed. I don't even think it was Islamophobia. She looked beautiful. So I think, I'm saying all that to say, I think it's the beauty of our nature and our naturalness that creates this kind of
Insecurities?
Insecurity is the word that I'm looking for within that corporate structure. You know, white people, whoever, you know, or unconscious, unaware people of African descent. When they see that beautifulness and that vibrance, even when we're wearing, because the colors are blue and grays and blacks and stuff in corporate America in most of these institutions. So when we're being ourselves, when we're vibrant and we're radiant, and we're wearing our hair normally, you know what I'm saying, naturally, and our colorful garb that we wear, I think it creates those insecurities within the workplace. So,
one last question, family, before y'all get out of here. Steve Harvey, multi-millionaire, I think, at this point, right? He actually encouraged young black men to cut their locks because he's all about getting the bag. And he's saying, remember he got in an argument with Monique about the whole integrity issue, and he's like, my kids can't eat integrity. I gotta pass something down to my kids and my grandchildren. So how do you feel about somebody who may adopt the Steve Harvey mentality and says, I could make $150,000 a year if I cut these locks off, so these shits gotta go? What's your take on that philosophy, that mentality, this whole Steve Harvey approach to surviving in this world?
Yeah, it's a.
That's just like, give me the mic. She like, give me the mic.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely pass the mic because I know she's gonna throw it down and drop it with her words and her intellect. That's
$150,000 a year if you cut them. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, it's a funny thing because it depends on where we are in our awareness and consciousness, right? So, you know, there's people that I know that talk about, you know, maroon societies within Black America, right? Where you create your own business, your own world, your own reality, and you can garner your own salary of $150,000 if you're able to work for yourself and do certain things, right? So it's tough because when you cut to the chase to the question, it's kind of like, you know, maybe because some people say this, maybe you do that to get in the door and then grow your hair. Some people said that to me. Ironically, I was actually, believe it or not, worked for a Fortune 500 company, and I had to have 5 interviews to get in. And the higher I got up, I got to the 4th interview, and I know this doesn't touch to the question that you're asking, but I was told that the executive appreciated the locks that I had, right? And I was able to get a position because of, I guess I was coming from the New York area going into Delaware at the time, and they had never seen anyone in that corporate environment wearing locks. And so the executive, white guy, was very like the confidence and like that I wore them. So ironically, it's weird that I got a decent paying position wearing the locks. But to get to what you're saying, I just think it's an individual choice. My opinion is you wear your hair normally and you don't let anybody decide, no matter what, how you're gonna adorn yourself, especially if it's of indigenous, you know, garb, clothing, hair, etc. That's my opinion on it. If you're forfeiting $150K, maybe do the work to try to figure out how you can do it yourself. Maybe that's a gateway to let us know that we need to be more independent and work for ourselves or create our own companies. So, you know, I think that's my answer on that. I don't want to say, oh, cut your hair, get in, and then grow them out later. I say you wear your hair normally and naturally. That's my opinion on it. Go ahead and drop the mic, sis.
Okay. I mean, I saw the interview. I saw what he was saying. I listened to what he said, and I think, you know, the way he was talking about using that word integrity, right? I don't think he truly understands the word integrity. Because if you understand the word integrity, then you ain't thinking about selling yourself for whatever they're trying to give you. I mean, for many years, I've heard people say, you ain't gonna get a job with natural hair. I've never ever had a problem. But the biggest issue with this hair thing, right, doesn't come from the white community. Unfortunately, it comes from our own. And it's like the generations before us, because they're totally scarred from what happened to them. I mean, my mum would relax my hair from when I was 5 years old, right? And if you think about that, yeah, exactly, right? It was an easy way to manage all of our hair, and also to her, it looked neater, you know? And then the day I chopped my hair off and went natural, and then it would start growing out, she'd keep asking me, like, when are you gonna relax your hair? Are you gonna get it braided? Like, constantly. The only people who ever made any kind of negative comment about my hair, like, when are you getting your hair done, were black people. I've never had an issue getting a job with my natural hair. And with regards to what he's saying, I think it speaks volumes about the kind of person that he is, right? Because everyone should have principles, right? And you should stick to them no matter what. It doesn't matter how much money someone's offering you. That money doesn't mean anything at the end of the day, and you're only going to get so far. Like, someone can chop their hair off and then have this job for so far, but they ain't going to be happy, because if you're in an establishment that doesn't like you for who you are, then you ain't supposed to be there, and you're not going to be happy. You're going to know that. You can be there for a year, 2 years, you're making that money, but at the end of the day, you ain't happy. And if you ain't happy, there's no point. So, I mean, for me, I think everyone needs to do them and do what makes them happy. And, you know, that offer of money might give you instant gratification, but it ain't going to give you a lifetime of happiness or satisfaction, because you're always going to know in the back of your head you had to be someone else to be accepted, which means you ain't truly accepted. If you ain't accepted for who you are, then that isn't acceptance. And for me, that's not the kind of life that I would want to live, or that I feel like anyone should live, because it only breeds all those kind of negative parasites that have you back there in that sunken place, mental health problems and everything else. That's my personal opinion on that.
No buck dancing, coon shuffling, tap dancing, shuffling time.
Well, I have to go at it a different way.
So how do you see it, my brother?
Well, first of all, I do agree with what you're saying, as far as, especially when you're talking about integrity. The first thing that came to mind is that the thought process is that you're not able to make $150,000 without right person's approval. So that's the undertone to it, you know. But at the same time, we have to be realists, and each person has to judge based off of their personal situation. I can't tell a person who's starving, who's in a bad situation, not to do what's necessary to get themselves in a better position. Right, and that's why I'm saying, and that's what, for us, a lot of us are in survival mode. So we have to be real to the situation. So it is individualistic in the sense of saying that a person would have to judge, because you could easily say to them, all right, cut your hair off to get the job and then grow it back.
Yeah, that's why
you know what I'm saying? And then when you come back in the next day like, gotcha. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, you have to be prepared to deal with whatever decision that you make. So if you're going to come in there with the locks, you have to be able to deal with that and be able to navigate that. Like myself, I'll give myself as an example. Sometimes I go to work, I'm rocking this hat, you know what I mean? I'll come with my dashiki on, or whatever the case may be, but I have a clear understanding that when I walk in there, I know not only would I have to deal with from white folks, I may have to deal with it, but I may also have to deal with it from my own folks. And for my own folks, it's dealing with that ignorance, or it's also dealing with self-hate, or how Steve Biko said it. What is the strongest weapon in the hands of the oppressor? Right? The minds of the oppressed. So we've been indoctrinated with a self-hate that teaches us that, like Steve Harvey, you will have that mentality like, well, in order for us to get ahead, we have to assimilate, as opposed to saying, listen, I understand that you may have to do this, but here's another option. You can go out and get your own. You can create your own business where you don't have to live under those rules. So that would be my issue with him, because he's not giving you the other side of the coin. He's just saying that the only way that you're getting ahead is that you're going to have to assimilate. Just like there's people who say, well, I'm naming my kids this way because
I've heard that too.
I want them to get a corporate job, or whatever the case may be. So, well, what about having them start their own business, run their own corporation where they set their own rules? So when you start looking at it from that standpoint, I would never down a person who's made that decision, you know, I got to do this to, you know, because I'm going to judge you based off of your whole body of work. Because at the end of the day, it's chess, not checkers. So you may be making a strategic move to be able to get to a certain place. So I'm going to sit back and I'm going to watch and I'm going to look at your whole body of work before I say, oh, you're a sellout because you cut your hair. No, I mean, let me see how you're moving. Let me see what else you're doing. And that's sometimes what happens with us. We get a little bit of information, a little knowledge, and we get a little self-love for ourselves, and then we automatically condemn those who we judge or think are doing something that's so-called counter black power or black love, when we're not really mapping their movements to see. And sometimes if you look at certain people, I don't try to judge them until I see, I think it was Minister Farrakhan who said, you don't really judge a person until the period is put on the end of their life, because you may not know the moves that they're making to do what they're doing. They could be the person that, there's a scripture who talks about the person who professes to do God's work and was found not doing it. But then there was somebody on the side who never professed to do God's work but was found doing God's work. Which person would you rather be down with? Which person do you want in your foxhole? So sometimes we get quick with our judgment based off of that. So I would say that what I would say to Steve Harvey is that his analysis is short. You know what I mean? That he should add to it that you don't have to go and do that. But if you're trying to operate in this corporate world, give them the jewels. Say, this is what you may have to encounter, so that they're empowered to say, all right, I'm going to make a choice whether I'm going to do that or not do that. But here's the other option.
To add, is this okay when I talk about
close it out. Let them know about, what you got real quick.
All right. So the brother, what's your name again? Brother Mike. So the brother Mike just made a great assessment and synopsis of tying everything together in regards to corporate America and everything. And you did make mention about the names, like a lot of people who will give their children a certain name to make sure that they are guaranteed success in in discussion of names in corporate America, and you were making mention as we were talking about the hair and the hair being accepted, and again, it's always trying to fit in. How can we fit in into this, what we understand is a white supremacist society where, again, we speak English, have English names, most of the religious structures based off of how we've been indoctrinated into a Western American society, which is not indigenous to our own, right? So names being one of those things. And I know that different, like Harvard, Yale, different so-called major institutions have done studies on these names, whereas they'll hand in resumes blindly and then do a demographic study or research in regards to who's contacted just based off of a name. And now my thing with that in regards to black people, African Americans who want to give the names of a Tom or Mike or just to play it safe, I always wonder about many of the West Africans with traditional Ifa, Yoruba, Ga, Twi names who have these positions in the sciences, mathematics, engineering, and all these different things, who are black people. So is this a social thing where if they, think if it's Abdul Rahim and you're African American, they put it away, or can they tell if it's an indigenous African name they're chosen? Because I see, in my personal opinion, many West Africans with using their regular indigenous names and getting hired in corporate America and major institutions. So there might be something that needs to be said in regards to that, and I'm hoping I'm making sense here. But I'm also segueing into a documentary that I created called DNA, Using Genealogy to Change My Slave Last Name. All right, so the name is the name of the documentary is DNA, Using Genealogy to Change My Slave Last Name. It features Dr. Gina Page of AfricanAncestry.com. It features Dr. Leonard Jeffries. It features the brother Tazariak, Captain Tazariak of ISUPK. as well as Senator Kevin Parker of Brooklyn. And it just, again, discusses the narrative and discourse around our names. And so I said, hey, well, Malcolm X was the last person to really kind of discuss our names, right? It's why he went with the X, which is the unknown, right? Outside of getting into everything about, W.D. Fard, Elijah Muhammad, everything else in regards to that, but what Malcolm was talking about specifically in regards to the names. So I feel like I wanted to kind of add to this narrative, to this discourse, if you will, but kind of maybe push the envelope. So you have many black people who may make Shahada in Islam and change their name Islamically, or as Hebrew Israelite or Moors after they do their study, or they might be become affiliated into the traditions of Ifa or Yoruba and become initiated and have their name changed based off of those things, which I agree with. I'm also stating that if we do a DNA test, and once you get your results, for those who trust the DNA, and like the brother Sarnetta says, if you locked up for 30, 40 years and then you get that DNA back, you're not going to decide, hey, I don't trust the DNA, I'm not going to come out of prison. You're going to come out of prison. So I feel like we can use that DNA for that percentage that gives us our direct ethnicity. Now you have something to choose, right? It might not get you directly to your specific person that you might think that you can get through DNA, but it will give you your lineage, your ethnic lineage, and now you have something to carry outside of Jackson, Jones, Wilson, Smith, O'Neill, okay? And so we do our first names, Raheem, Shabazz, Raquan, Shaniqua, Egypt. We'll name ourselves even after reading a book. It might be an African name, African sounding name, or Arabic name, an Arabic sounding name, right?
Where can they get this at?
Well, I just want to say it's one thing, but the whole time that we're carrying the last names of the plantation owners. All right, so right now it's not out yet, but you can follow on social media at DNA. The Gmail is DNA Name Change, and you can see the IG is at DNA Name Change, as well as Twitter at DNA Name Change, and Facebook at Naware Burge. And I'll be the documentary won Best Documentary at the Black Star International Film Festival in Accra, Ghana. I just came back from the International Pan-African Festival in Cannes in France. I also screened the film in London. I will be screening the film at the University of Helsinki in Finland, as well as the African Society of Human Genetics in Bamako, Mali. So it will be out soon. Right now I'm just screening it, but it will be touring at a city near you, so just follow on social media. All right?
Man, I want to thank y'all for coming on the platform. Mike, do you want to leave the people?
Yeah, that's all right, brother. That's all right, brother. The only thing I'll say, we shouldn't be surprised when we see things like this as far as them putting laws out in reference to hair and stuff like that, or having to put a law out in reference to hair. This has just been, that's just another reminder of what we've been having to go through, throughout the entire time that we've been here. So, peace, King. Peace, Queen. So it doesn't really shock me in a sense, but the other side of it for me is that it's just a sign that things are slowly and surely, things are manifesting that we've been always fighting for. So we should just keep fighting, keep pressing, keep pushing, because these are also signs for us to say that, all right, the change that we've been fighting for and asking for, we asking for it is coming. So now we have to put ourselves in a position to capitalize off of this change and stuff. And let's not look at it only from a negative standpoint. Let's also look at it from, if we believe what we say we believe in, if we believe that we have the strength and the power that we say that we have to manifest these things, when we see it manifesting, then let's pay homage to that and pay homage to the ancestors for working in our behalf.
Indeed. Thanks once again for being on the platform, my brother.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Brother Rich. I always call you the young Gil Noble of the hood, so I always appreciate when you give a brother a platform to speak on.
Peace.